Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable video game from a particular moment in their life. On the show, we talk as much about what made playing that game special or what stood out about it to our guest, as we will get into the context of how and when they had this meaningful time with it. A little bit of housekeeping up top is that anything that my guest or I plug today, there will be a link in the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast to just click directly to whatever we're sharing. If you're listening / watching on YouTube, though, I haven't quite figured out a clean way to do it how I have in the podcast, so it might be messy. You might have to do some Googling. You're not a second-rate citizen if you watch on YouTube. In fact, I like you even more. I'm stumbling here, and I'm just alienating some semblance of listeners. Anyway, you can probably find our stuff in the show notes. Starting with, we're all over social media. So if you want to follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Blue Sky, there's a link in the show notes for all those accounts there where I post, on the episode, the day the episode comes out, you find out what episode it is, who's the guest, what are they up to, how you can support them. You can see the cool art I make for every episode. And if we have special updates / like bonus stuff that comes out from our network, that's a great place to connect with us. You can also support the show a few different ways by leaving us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. The iTunes podcast front is the only place that lists reviews publicly. So if you leave one somewhere else, let me know because I'd love to read it on the show. Again, if you've been listening to this show for a while, leave us a review. It'll help more people find us like yourself. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to watch these every week. And you can also just share the show with a friend, whether they love video games in general or the game that our guest has brought on for the main event today. We also have a lovely Discord, so if you want to be a part of that with a great community, hit me up, hit the show up, and I'll send you a link so you can jump in and talk about all sorts of stuff, video game related and not. And then lastly, you can check us out on Patreon. We're over at patreon.com/supernpcradio. And if you like me and the discussions that I have with people about video games, you're going to like a lot of what you find there. This is a podcast network that myself and Jeremy Schmidt started 3.5 years ago. We have a ton of bonus podcasts there, including our current games club. As every Friday, we have new episodes that come out where we are playing through Resident Evil 2 Remake in a book club style format. And folks, I got to say, it's still scary. A few weeks in, I'm still very scared. It's scary and good. So if you want to hear a wonderful group chat about that, that is available at a tier there. Again, patreon.com/supernpcradio for all of your bonus video game podcast needs. And yes, I'm considering them needs. That'll do it for the housekeeping of the show. And I'll finally introduce our guest for today's episode. So please welcome improviser and commercial writer Max Lasser.
Thanks for having me, Connor. I'm so excited. This is wonderful.
Hey, you know what, buddy? You're pretty wonderful. That's what I have to say.
Wow.
Yeah. I like to occasionally give a peek behind the curtain for the listener. And this one I just noticed seconds ago. I've got my beautiful episode guide up so that if I get lost or too rambly, I can always go back to whatever we're talking about, whether I'm plugging stuff or introducing someone or reading the Wikipedia paragraphs that I've pulled about the game later. And for you, I always write down how my guest is introduced, and I wrote down improviser and commercial, Max Lasser.
Yeah. Oh. And, that could mean I was a commercial actor, which I'm not,
Yeah.
I went on a couple commercial acting auditions, in maybe 2015.
Huge. Yes.
You're a big, are you in commercials, Connor? You're in commercials.
Yes, I am, and may have been cut from one recently.
No, they cut you from the commercial?
Well, it's
those fools.
I love how we've gotten to make this about me. It's my favorite thing on the show. Well, here's the thing. So this is a little brag for me. Don't talk about it often, but this has been a really good year for me. I've been able to be in 3 commercials.
No,
2
that's
of
awesome.
Which, yeah, thank you. One of which everybody saw and was so cool, and I felt was such a great showcase of my ability. And then one of which I'm in for briefly, but our mutual friend Charlie Mihelic saw it somewhere and like told me he saw it. So I was like, well, it's out there.
That's great. And that's the greatest pleasure of all when you see a random friend in a commercial and you get to turn to like your dad as you're watching football and be like, I know him.
Yes.
I know him.
Yes. All too often I have to, I'm like truly the Leo DiCaprio meme, just pointing at the TV.
Exactly.
From Once Upon a Time. In fact, I'm sidetracking before I get to the real important part of the story, which is one of my first jobs out here in LA, my second job, I was a studio page at Paramount Pictures. Do you know what a page is?
Oh yeah, of course.
I had a feeling you might know.
Yeah, I have many ex-page friends, I think.
Yes. So as a page at a studio, it's essentially, at least at Paramount, we were glorified tour guides. Like our primary job was to conduct the studio tours. If you play your cards right, you eventually get to take like a temp job somewhere else on the lot. And of course, when you start there, you're thinking, oh, maybe they'll hire me as like a writer's assistant. You really don't get plugged into creative stuff too much. All that being said is that for like a year after that, anytime there would be a commercial on TV that filmed at Paramount, I would basically do what we talked about, but point at the screen and go Paramount. And
I know that wall. Wall.
Yeah. Oh, that's the New York backlot. Yeah. So my dear friend Stephen Loomis, it's still a running bit between us where we'll like one of us will just jokingly say Paramount at any time, and we know what we're talking about. All that being said, again, just real roundabout way to get here is that I saw a commercial that I was in like a month and a half ago that I acted in. It just aired last week. I wasn't in it, but I thought at the time when I was shooting it, I think this segment that I'm doing is its own separate one shot that's going to be like a 15-second ad in social media.
Yeah.
And I'm holding out hope that buyout is still going to come my way. Is the real hope
the new media rate or whatever. And it's going to be like Instagram paid media.
Truly.
For your little spot. Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially because I got cast in something that I didn't audition for. Like I did a few different things, which was great. So look out for mailroom guy in a Best Buy commercial if it ever comes out.
I would cast you as a mailroom guy. That's great.
Thank you. I really have found a wheelhouse of playing like sort of wienery office guys. Big time.
Yeah. But you have range. I mean, like, you're going to get your foot in the door with the wienery office guys.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you're playing a sort of European villain.
Yes.
And then one day you're playing like a sort of like low-level stalker, and then you're,
now we're talking.
Then you have a holiday sweater on, and you're playing like a sort of holiday ingenue lead type guy.
Yes, and then ideally playing like Owen Wilson, former boyfriend of the like protagonist's like girlfriend who is like too nice that you don't like. Is so the characters like him, but the main character hates him.
Right. Like you're like, oh, he would be so great in a relationship, but I just like my my clit just doesn't throb for him.
If I had a dime for the amount of times I've heard that in my life.
I'm sure you've never heard that, Connor. People are out here throbbing for you.
You know what? I wish I could say that is true. This is great. I really did just bring you on to sort of like forge a path for my career, my budding commercial acting career. But Max, I'm so excited to have you on today. I've already had far so much fun, whatever that means. You and I know each other, if it wasn't already obvious to the listener, like I know the majority of the guests on the show, which is through the Los Angeles improv community. We both studied at the UCB Theater in LA, but we were talking before the show. I was like, I don't have the exact moment that I met you, like in my brain as I sometimes do, but I remember as I was like getting back into improv, like I had first taken, like when I moved here 10 years ago, took like 101, 201, 301 within like a 9-month span. And it was just like, drinking the Kool-Aid big time. And then took essentially a year and a half off, couldn't get into a 401. And so when I was getting back into it, the aforementioned Stephen Loomis and some other friends were already like doing indie improv. So I would tag along with them and Charlie and Jess and saw you performing a ton with the likes of former guest of the show, Jeff Topolsky, Alex Ungerman.
Who just had a daughter. Alex
goodness.
Ungerman just had a daughter. Shout out.
Amazing. Shout out to you, Alex, and your daughter. But that's like when I remember seeing you around. I think before I even met you, I saw you. What was the three of you
it was
were
called
on a team.
Egg Teach.
Was Emily on that team as well?
Yeah, with Emily as well. Yeah.
I saw you perform cage match, I think, against Hibeki.
Yeah,
did that happen?
We got washed. We got like we did good, but like it's like we were just up against like a complete wood chipper. They were crazy.
Yes,
they were.
You and like
so
70
good.
Other teams.
I know.
In a
we were just
row.
in the fucking corpse pile. Can I swear on here? Sorry.
Yes. No. By all means.
Well, we were in the fucking corpse pile.
Gosh, brutal. But so there's a chance we may have met, but that was just like a time where I remember really watching you and being like, that guy is so funny. We eventually got to know each other around the mock improv scene. I think I'm pretty sure that's where we actually got to know each other and probably met like before a show. And I probably was like, I knew who you were, but
do you think when we met, Trump had been elected?
No, I think I met you before. I think I want to say like 2015 or like earlier 2016.
Trump campaign ads.
Yes.
Primaries.
Yeah, so it was in the air, the deterioration was beginning, but
yeah. That was definitely before I was like, I was so into it then. Like I had no like feeling of being jaded.
Into the Trump
fully,
campaign.
Into the Trump campaign. Exactly. Just the campaign, not the candidate. Yes. Just the art and artistry and history of the campaign itself.
But you were talking about improv in general.
Exactly. I think that's and I think, you know what, like if 600 of my closest friends want to make it 2015 again, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yes. If we want to get like 1,000 people to get really into indie improv again and like do it like 4 times a week.
Yeah. Let's push out the young upstarts who are there now.
Push them out. They're done.
And
it's back to us again.
Yes. We'll reclaim our crowns from 8 years ago. But, that's how we know each other and came to know each other. But is there anything else about yourself that you want to share with the listener that they might not know, or anything you want to, point them to?
I think I have no plugs. I'm currently working at Twitch, and I used to be a Riot Games guy.
I heard you say that on your episode on Reactivators.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely feel like I have some like professional video game stuff going on, as well as my like individual burning passion for video games. But I think that's like about all the context I got. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can I ask you a little bit about what you do at Twitch? Because I've not asked you ever.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and why should you? No, I just like, I do like branded streams basically.
Oh, cool. Gotcha.
So like a brand comes to me and I'm like, what if we did this?
Yes.
That's like my whole thing.
Gotcha.
And then I have a couple like little like side project interests there. One of which is like, I'm not sure if you're familiar. You know Baldur's Gate 3, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the official Twitch extension for Baldur's Gate 3?
No.
So there's an official Twitch extension, and it was a huge hit. Basically what it did is like, while you're watching your favorite streamer play Baldur's Gate 3, you could like click the extension. It would like show you their inventory or like show you their build.
Oh, wow.
And it like let you like vote on dialogue options. So the extension plugged directly into the video game. And the only way for that to happen is if the studio builds the extension like while they built the game. So Larian actually built this like official Twitch extension that plugs into the Twitch platform. And that kind of like real-time video game Twitch integration thing I think is like super, super interesting. So that's been like one of my like passing side project interests.
Oh my gosh.
I had nothing to do with that, but
Yeah.
I've been sort of like trying to get more game companies interested in doing them and things like that. So.
Sure. I bet there's many like things we haven't even considered or like avenues like that could be really great for certain types of games.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's like a ton of different games that could be like really improved. Like your experience of watching a game on Twitch could be like really improved by being able to plug into the like the thing. Like imagine like all the like Fortnite map creator mode stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was an effort to like plug into like, you know, like what if like those maps could like be controlled by chat? So like you could like the chat could be like dropping like, you know, soldiers for you to fight or whatever, right? Like I think there's like a lot. I'm really interested in that kind of like genre of game where like how could you get like, you know, 1,000 people like playing at once or like playing against each other or things like that. So that's become a kind of like, it's not really my job, but I'm sort of like interested in it. Yeah,
absolutely. That's really cool. I guess for the listener out there, then just go on Twitch and look for cool features like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Support.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing about that too. That's not anything I had any clue about. We're obviously going to discuss, you know, get into your history with gaming in this first segment at the top of the show. But before we do that, you've brought on a game for the main event later today. So will you please introduce what that is and call me by your game?
Yes, the game I have brought today is Slay the Spire. And I'm very, very thrilled to be talking about Slay the Spire.
Hell yeah. I can't wait. Very exciting, very good game that, you know, I don't always have experience with them on the show, but I do have some with this one. So, like I said, let's get into your general history with games. Do you remember, like, the earliest or some early interest that you took in video games in your life?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Obviously, I heard you ask this when I listened to some other episodes of the show. And I feel like, you know, my earliest game stuff is very like common, right? Like I feel like almost all of us are like, you know, we're playing Pokemon on the Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
We're like playing like Donkey Kong Country, like we're playing the Star Fox N64, we're playing like N64 Super Smash Brothers.
The hits.
You know? Yeah. I do remember, I'm sure this is like a very common story, but I remember going into like first grade and there was a kid who had Pokemon Blue and I was like, that looks like the most fun thing I've ever seen in my life. Like I was consumed by a desire, like to figure out what that was and like get it. That's maybe my earliest gaming memory, if you don't count like whatever. But
that was a powerful time, and like we just did. This is the earliest that I've, you know, if you want to call it organically, I'm plugging the Patreon, but that games club you heard me talking about in quarter 2 of like earlier this year, we went through and played the original red, blue, and yellow. A couple of people played yellow actually. And so, you know, while we were talking about these games, replaying these games, we also were talking so much about how it still feels like really cool, not necessarily serendipitous, but like there's something interesting that we were like the sort of like guinea pigs for this like phenomenon, and we were like the target age when this first hit and exploded, and now it's like the biggest media property in the world or something like that.
And it was like so cool that it was like made for kids.
Yeah,
because like a lot of the great and most popular games now are made for like teenagers to adults, right? But it was pretty cool that like Pokemon, it was clearly like the main character's 10, like there's no like blood, like everybody just faints. Like it was sort of built for kids to play it, which I think is very like, that was sort of lucky.
Yeah, that's really cool. So where did you go from here with your gaming interest?
Okay, so then I had a GameCube. I'm playing like, you know, Super Smash. I've played every Super Smash Brothers, so like, you know, I'll leave that one off. But like, I got into some early PC games. Oh, I played a lot of like Age of Empires.
Okay, cool.
I played. Did you ever play like Warcraft 3 custom maps?
No.
That was big for me.
I am aware of at least the difference between Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft because I've had somebody on the show to talk about that. But no, so that was a huge thing for you.
Huge. Yeah. Warcraft 3 custom maps. Warcraft 3 was like, and StarCraft were, I think, some of the first like map modder modes things. And so like that was like one of the first chances for like your sort of average Joe to like make a game and like put it out there. And like, I think I've just had a lot of fun like trying all these various little games that were in the thing, and they made it really easy to play with your friends, which like, you know, back when you were like installing games on CDs, there was no like Steam. Like it wasn't like you just like click a button and you're like in the game for most things. It was like a huge undertaking to like play like multiplayer Age of Empires or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the Warcraft 3 custom maps made it pretty easy. So, and then I think a lot of like, Dota, Defense of the Ancients, was originally a Warcraft 3 custom map mode, and then obviously that inspired League of Legends. And so I think there was a lot of like really like early like period, whatever that period of game design was. I think there was a lot of like stuff that was like kicking off during Warcraft 3 custom maps.
A lot of creativity that was like given to the player. I was thinking about this a bit because the episode that we had, for the listener, I think this would have been like 3 weeks ago at this point, or our last. Occasionally, I've been having old guests come back and in a group list their top 10 favorite games ever.
That's fun.
And Jake Sprague was on and talked about, I think, StarCraft and how like that like birthed like the custom things you could do in that game, like the game creation birthed genres of games.
Exactly.
Which is just like something that I personally missed, but like love hearing about.
Yeah. Those StarCraft and Warcraft, both their map modes, I think, like, absolutely birthed.
They don't call them craft for nothing, I guess.
Exactly.
That's cool. Were you playing these games with friends? Was it mostly like online communities?
No, I had a couple. I had like the same group of like 4 friends through like middle school and then early high school, and then like I sort of branched out more in high school and then like much more in college. But I had kind of the same like 3 guys I was kind of playing those kind of games. But I mostly pretty much from like 7th grade on, like my most intense game obsessions were like whatever these other 3 guys were playing.
Yes.
And so we all played like World of Warcraft together. They would like come over. We would play like GoldenEye a lot.
Yeah.
Nightfire. And so yeah. And then I still play like League of Legends with those guys to this day. So
yes, loved getting League of Legends talk in your episode of Reactivators.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah.
Because like especially just not being like a game that I have interacted with, but I know has had such a large like footprint on gaming in general.
Totally.
Like sometimes hearing people talk about things like that are like the most fun for me as just like a listener, to be honest. So that was cool hearing you.
My current hot take is that League of Legends is the only good esport.
Yeah.
And like, it's a little controversial because like there's plenty of others, and like, StarCraft was the like original esport.
Yeah.
But, it's just amazing. League of Legends World Champions are going on right now, and they're like setting viewership records, and it's like a 10-year-old game. It's like the only esport that hasn't like completely like plummeted into nothing. So
yeah, for you, even though I'm pretty unfamiliar, like from your perspective, what makes it that to you?
I think League of Legends is like it has that like chess like quality where like you just like every match has like an infinite strategy to it that you can just like master forever. I think it's just really they keep making it. They like iterate really quickly. I was talking to a buddy about this actually, literally yesterday, about how like certain like game communities that like turn sour. One of the reasons is that developers like they iterate too slowly. Like it's like they won't make any big changes to the formula because they're too nervous it'll like hurt their bottom line or whatever. Like I think that's why like the new Call of Duty campaign is like a 4 out of 10, and like I think Activision Blizzard is a big like culprit of this. But,
yes.
Like Diablo is like the same thing. Everyone's like bored of it. Like so I think it's really cool when you're able to like change like make really big changes and then like have it still be like sort of coherent and strong. And so
that's it seems like a brave task because obviously there's so much risk there, but like it's cool when that can succeed.
Exactly.
So very cool. So you were saying that like a lot of your I think you said it like this, that a lot of your gaming from that point on was like whatever this group was playing.
Yeah.
Did you say that you still play games together?
We do, yeah. It's
it's
awesome. Evolved and like whatever. It's a couple different guys, but it's like they've kind of folded it with my college crew and stuff. So it's really fun. You just pop into like a different. We have maybe 1 or 2 Discords going, and then sort of like friends of friends Discord. So you can usually find a game to play with somebody.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I guess what I wanted to ask you, I was having trouble remembering where you're from.
Greenville, South Carolina, originally.
Yes, and I think you even mentioned this on your episode. That's cool.
Yeah.
And where did you go to college?
The University of South Carolina. Go Cox.
Oh, go Gamecocks. Look at that.
Go Gamecocks, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, not that it was important context, but my brain likes to place those things sometimes.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
College gaming to me was all about playing Super Smash Brothers Brawl in my room with my friends, World of Warcraft, and League of Legends. That was like pretty much it.
Did you like bring a PC to school?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh, like I like had a decent PC growing up, and I did not bring it with me. I got like a laptop.
Yeah.
I got a Mac for the first time. Got a Mac and brought it with me, and it was it was what I needed. But like in retrospect, I am jealous of the people like yourself who had that experience at school.
And when I got to college, I was into like Magic the Gathering a little bit growing up.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Oh, do you want to bring your cards to college?" And I was like, "Actually, Mom, I'm going to be popular in college. I'm super cool and suave, so I'm not going to bring my Magic the Gathering cards." And then I got to school, and my roommate, who is one of my best friends this day, turned out to be a like Grand Prix entering Magic the Gathering player, and he had like 6 decks. And I was like, all right, I had to call my mom and be like, "Mom, will you set my Magic the Gathering decks?"
I swear I'm still gonna be cool.
I'm still gonna be cool. I'm still gonna be popular. Still gonna be suave.
That is so hysterical. I'd love to know, like, when you finished college, did you move out here pretty soon, or
yeah, pretty much immediately.
Around?
Yeah, just kind of like was like, let's give it a shot, So
yeah. What was gaming like for you when you moved?
Okay, so now we're entering more of the like, I'm an adult, I'm like smoking weed, I'm like, there's I have a lot of like free time now, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say now I played a lot more. Obviously the whole time still playing like games with my friends, League of Legends, whatever. But I lived with some a buddy of mine. We would play Super Smash Bros. Together a lot still. But like now there's much more like, okay, like I'm gonna stare at like a fucking 10th century map of Europe and like move troops around till like 2 a.m, like stoned out of my mind. So like that is I was not really doing in college and high school. But I would say I got like I developed a love for like single player games more like as an adult. That's like maybe like 30 maybe it's like 30% single player now and like 70% multiplayer.
Gotcha. What were there any like of those single player experiences that really stood out to you, whether it was one you just enjoyed or a game you would have never thought you enjoyed?
Totally. I was really into Crusader Kings.
Okay,
that was my like Europe joke. Civ 5, of course, right? Like all those like just manage a bunch of like little finicky things, turn-based, like I definitely very much enjoy the Total War games, the Total War Warhammer game.
Yeah. Did you, which those have some aspects in common with the like RTS games that you were playing, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do. Because you're managing like a big, but like those are more like sort of like you don't have to have like fast reaction time. For them, like
maybe over a longer period of time that is affected as opposed to like doing a match sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, is there anything that was like way out of that wheelhouse for you, or like because you're sharing like such, I feel like not off the beaten path games, but like almost like a specific genre in my mind of types of games. Do you like the sort of prototypical like third person action games, like story stuff, or no?
Yeah, what's funny is like that's like I would say like kind of not my kind of game.
Yeah,
because I kind of feel like a lot of the story games. It's like, is this really that good a story? Like, is this good for a game, or is it like actually
That's a good question.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to like really enjoy, and like I haven't played like I need to play like Disco Elysium and like all the like really best reviewed like most well written games, because like I'm not trying to like cast aspersions on like narrative game writers as an art form, but like I just got a PS5 recently, and it came with God of War for free, and I was like, all right, God of War really does not seem like my game, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And I played it for like 20 minutes, and I was like, this shit is stupid as hell.
Yeah, not for you. That's why I was kind of asking. But I think there is a fair point to be, raised about like narrative quality in games. I've been thinking about it a lot more myself, and while I generally enjoy it or am along for the ride, depending on how you want to see it, it is like, not to make an excuse either, but like it's such a weird challenge because you're not making a movie, but like a lot of these games are emulating that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And
totally.
It just brings an interesting conundrum, and because I feel like it's like, well, we're playing a game here, so what about this is distinguishing for games? And I don't have an answer to that all the time.
Yeah, like Last of Us, I think, is the best example of that, right?
Yeah.
Because like I never played Last of Us, and so I was like, wasn't super interested in the show, but I Christiana has a huge crush on Pedro Pascal, so of course we watched it, and so and I was actually very impressed with it. I thought it was super super fun watching, a very satisfying ending, and I get why people love the game now, but like I feel like it transferred so well to a movie that it's almost like, why shouldn't it just be a movie? Because when I actually played through the levels of Last of Us, I was like not super entertained by it.
Yeah.
But you know what is cool is like a super branching story, and that's why like a Baldur's Gate 3 is such a like miracle of a game, right? Because you can't get the same experience from a movie that you can get from like Baldur's Gate 3, right?
Yeah. And speaking of which, I know that's a game you've been enjoying thoroughly.
Love that game.
So do you want to talk about, your time with Baldur's Gate 3 at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Baldur's Gate 3 is like, I think if a studio like many studios have tried and attempted to make, well, what if we just turn Dungeons and Dragons into a video game?
Yeah.
And people have had like success with it. Like some people like the Pathfinder games and things like that. Like I've tried those. I wasn't as into it. But the level of like writing and brutality and like world building and realism and detail in Baldur's Gate is like really astounding. Where like you actually are like, yeah, like I've been a DM. I've DM'd a bunch of D&D campaigns, and I'm like, oh, I'm my ass is getting waxed by this level of like story and character and detail and interaction, and like, so I mean, they just basically really pulled it off where you actually can like interact with the world and make like huge decisions, and they like really affect like the next part of the story. And then they actually made it fun to play through it, where like the combat is really satisfying, and they made just a couple little tweaks to like make it more, like playable, like in like a video game format. So yeah, it's a home run.
That's really cool. It's one that like I just have only heard praise for it. Like I'm sure there are people who it is not for. But I think that, I don't know if it's like that word of mouth has spread really well, or if Larian has done a good job at advertising, but like, I feel like everyone, like myself, I think if I played it, I would love it, but I know what it is, so I've been like, I don't have the time for it.
Right,
like,
it is. I did play it for,
like hundreds of hours?
Yeah, I played it for like 200 hours. I actually just went and looked on Steam. I played it for 200 hours.
Hell yeah.
That's so like, it's like, yeah, it's crazy.
It's like our mutual friend, Chuck Ma, has like 3 games going.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. I was in a D&D campaign with Chuck Ma, so.
Yes.
2 actually. So.
Were you in with like you, Chuck, Matt?
Yep.
I remember seeing this on like my memory is like, for some reason, decided to remember like an Instagram story of like a group of you from like 2017 or something.
Yeah.
Wild. Well, I've got a couple more questions for you before we wrap up this part of the show. Is there a game that you have your eye on, whether it's one you haven't played that's already out or that is has yet to be released?
Ooh, that is you know what it is? Is the rumored Riot Games MMO.
Oh.
They're apparently making a sort of World of Warcraft in a League of Legends world. The nerdiest sentence ever been said by anyone, but that seemed like making an MMO is impossible. Like the amount of money you have to invest in the infrastructure to like like support all those players like in the same like reality is like it's just so expensive, and it's like such a like brutal networking job, and like it's so hard for any other MMO besides WoW to like get off the ground because like the level you just have to the level of like money investment is just crazy. But I think Riot is like the only company that's like big enough to like really pull it off right now. So I'm excited for that.
Interesting. Do you still know people who work there?
Yeah, a couple. Not a ton. Yeah, but
I know at least 3 people who work there, and while it's not my genre, and nor is that world my world, but you raising the question, I'm like, I want to know. I want to ask somebody.
Let me ask you a question about that. Actually, do you ever do the bang your head against a ranked ladder kind of gaming? Like, do you ever try to go from bronze 3 to bronze 2?
I haven't had a lot of experiences like that. I would say that like the competitive games that I've put the most time into, especially those that are online, are probably like the Halo series back in the day. I tried to really get into Halo Infinite, and while I did really enjoy the gameplay and I thought the campaign was fun, regardless of how I felt about the story, like I just couldn't keep up online, and not that I felt inadequate. I would think I was fine, but no, I haven't really done that. It's a long way to answer that question.
First person shooters are like you're just getting like death squatted by 12-year-olds. It's crazy.
I gave recently though, I did give Apex Legends a shot. And I really enjoyed it. There were several friends that like I planned to play with and never did, so I was just really playing solo, and there was a lot that I found interesting about it, but no, just kind of didn't really get into it.
Did you ever give Valorant a shot?
No.
Yeah. That game is crazy because you just like a round starts and you can like just kind of like be like, I'm gonna go over here, and then you walk forward and then someone just shoots you in the head. And then you just sit there for like 2 minutes. Like you're just like when you're getting like destroyed in that game.
Yes.
You just like spawn in to a round and you like kind of try to hide behind a corner, and then you just get like obliterated immediately, and then you like wait 90 seconds and then you like do it again. It's like it's crazy. It's so frustrating to be bad at that game.
Yeah, that would be hard to get through. But interesting. The last question I have for you before we wrap this part up is there any game from your history of gaming that you have not brought up that you would just be so bummed if this episode ends and you didn't shout it out?
Ooh. Oh, you know what? I am really into like the sports games also. Like
really?
I'm into Madden. I'm into like,
Panthers fan?
I'm actually a Buffalo Bills fan.
I'm sorry, I knew that.
No, it's okay. My dad's from Buffalo, and I think filial loyalty trumped where I was born, so.
Yes. Cool. So, like, I mean, as someone who is still playing Madden, how do you feel about the current iteration? Because I haven't played a Madden in like 8 years.
It's not too bad. It's like I think the newest one is like pretty all right.
Nice.
I think they did a couple like Madden was like a big money grab. I think like. I think EA has some real money grab tendencies to them.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, and I'm the first one to ever say that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, the new one is still money grabby, but maybe a little bit less so than the previous one. So
I did hear some praise for it recently from like someone who hosts an RPG podcast. She also like happens to be a Vikings fan and loves
that's sick
football. So like that's cool to hear. Gosh, I feel like I had a more specific question. Oh, yes. With Madden, how are you playing it? Do you do like a season mode? Are you playing online?
When I buy it, I'll do a season mode, and that'll be like 3 days or 4 days of entertainment.
Yes.
And then I'll like win the Super Bowl like 80-0 or whatever, going undefeated. And then I'll be kind of like, all right, well, that was fun. I'm kind of done with that. And then I'll play it when I have this one friend who I play a lot of Madden with, and when I go to visit him like once a year, and we play a lot together. That's coming up actually, so I really got to get in the lab and make sure my skills are sharpened.
Hey, yeah, let's get you in tip-top shape. That's great. I have really fond memories of playing that game in similar ways, so I was just kind of curious how you played it. That's fantastic. Max, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. But then when we come back, we'll get into all things Slay the Spire. So I'll see you on the other side. Hello, I'm Connor McCabe.
I'm Jeremy Schmidt.
And me, Otacon.
And we're here with patreon.com/supernpcradio.
And that's the zombie who lives in the library of the Raccoon City Police Department.
And there it is. I just pissed myself.
That's right. This police station has a library, and the library has a zombie.
We're here circling the big table in the center of the library to tell you about the Resident Evil 2 Remake Games Club.
Every Friday, we drop a new episode covering another chunk of Leon and Claire's adventures through Raccoon City in the RE2 remake.
Great question, Library Zombie. You can find the podcast by joining our Patreon.
It's available at the $10 DJ Toad tier. That's right. You should sign up today at patreon.com/supernpcradio.
Say, Library Zombie, what are you doing here in the library?
You're looking for a specific book?
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Why do you want to read that?
Oh, you're trying to get ahead in your career.
See, I didn't know zombies had careers. Oh, your job is biting Leon and Claire. Zombies have jobs just like us.
I bet that makes for a pretty cutthroat work environment, huh?
Probably hard to make friends with your fellow zombies.
Yeah, that does sound lonely.
Check us out today, patreon.com/supernpcradio. Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game. It, of course, is your host, still here. It's Connor McCabe on the mic, here with my friend Max Lasser. Max, welcome back.
Loving it.
Oh, loving it. That's what I like to hear. Okay, future listeners, take note. That's how you respond to coming back from the break. Like I told you folks, Max has brought on the game Slay the Spire to discuss for this main event today. So, like I told you, Max, we're going to do a little table setting for the listener, but getting a little context out of this game. If you want to share anything or jump in, you got the green light, fella.
Awesome. There's something I want to read.
Oh, yes.
If that's
Would you like to lead off first, or would you rather me go first?
I don't want to change up the format if usually you go.
Green, go for it. Let's see.
Okay.
I'll move on my feet.
All right. So after we had locked in Slay the Spire for this episode, I was like, I randomly wanted like one other little like single player game to play. I was like looking around. I found this little Steam game called Astria, and this is just a random review of this Steam game that I literally read like 3 days ago. Okay. Okay. In the solar system of roguelite indie deck builders, there's no question of who the sun is. Slay the Spire's rays are so blinding, and its gravitational pull so strong, that it's almost impossible to talk about any of the games in its orbit without first prostrating in the warmth of its glow and acknowledging some obvious comparisons.
Oh my goodness. That puts it so well. Like, yeah, I feel like that's going to be such a nice pairing with all the technical, like, context that I give of, like, it's this kind of game. It came out here. This was the praise. That, I feel like, does give us a really good idea of, like you were kind of saying, the gravity of this game in the genre.
Yeah, and that was just some like random like Steam review of the game. Some poet out here just reviewing.
We gotta hire that
roguelite deck builders.
That Steam reviewer needs to be hired or given a grant to go write.
Yeah, let them write Disco Elysium 2, as far as I'm concerned.
That's amazing. So with Clumsily, I'll get us into some more clunky context here. And again, feel free to jump in if there's something important to share. Without further ado, here I go. Slay the Spire is a roguelike deck-building game developed by the American indie studio Megacrit and published by Humble Bundle, which I didn't know that until reading this. Kind of interesting. Have you ever bought a Humble Bundle, Max?
Yes, I have bought a Humble Bundle. Yeah, but not in a while, but I remember there were some cool games in the early Humble Bundles.
Yeah, I just bought my first last week, so kind of coincidental that this is coming up today. And it was one that IGN was promoting, or it was like, I don't know, I think maybe they had like curated a list of Humble Bundle games, and it was called like their 9 out of 10s. Like, all these games are at least a 9 out of 10.
Ooh,
games
I love that.
Like Disco Elysium that you named. The Forgotten City, which was a game that came out.
I tried to play the Forgotten City.
Yes.
Somebody got it for me. It is cool, but I did not finish it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
There was just 7 or 8 games that were very, very well regarded. But anyway, this game was published by Humble Bundle. It was first released in early access for Windows, Mac OS X, and Linux in late 2017, with an official release in January of 2019. It was released as well for the PlayStation 4 in May 2019, for the Switch in June 2019, and later that in August for the Xbox One. An iOS version was released in June 2020. That's dangerous. With an Android version released in February 2020.
Say you have a heart attack on the toilet. You're playing Slay the Spire.
Yeah. Oh no, this card. Love that
your
specific
vein
pull,
is just
right?
compressing on the toilet seat because you haven't moved in 5 hours.
Yes. In Slay the Spire, the player, through one of 4 characters, attempts to ascend a spire of multiple floors created through procedural generation, battling through enemies and bosses. Combat takes place through a collectible card game-based system, with the player gaining new cards as rewards from combat and other means, requiring the player to use strategies of deck-building games to construct an effective deck to complete the climb. Slay the Spire has been very well received, as I feel like that review said it better than I could. It was nominated for many accolades in 2019 and is considered the game that launched a number of this genre of roguelike deck building games. I'll say too, just to add a couple things there, while there is 4 starting characters that you can choose in the game, the way that you play those characters, sure, there are maybe more immediate strengths that are on the surface, but I think some of the fun of this game is playing to a place, or choosing to sort of craft your own play style or get creative with that. While I say that being someone who probably played it very down the barrel depending on who I was using. But Max, do you have any just bullet points that are important to include before we jump into your history with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely, it's hard to tell when something's incredibly innovative. What percent is it just fully original, and what percent is it the Steve Jobs effect, where you just steal what Xerox is doing, but you make it so much better that it doesn't even matter that it's not original. It's
a strong iteration or something like that.
Exactly. And so the in Slay the Spire, the way that you can manipulate every element of the game to suit your playstyle, you can you can choose to not take any new cards. You can increase your all your attack cards. You can only focus on blocking and counterattacking. You can focus on potions. You can focus on relics. You can take it the easy way and try to save all your health. You can go a really hard way and fight a bunch of elites and just try to get really strong. And it's this really infinite, and every piece of it works together like clockwork, where it always works how you expect and how you want. And when you think you come up with a broken combo that sort of manipulates a bunch of different mechanics, it works how you want it to, and it's very, very satisfying.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm even thinking about my limited 15 hours or so of time with this game. I actually should check my Switch to see how much I've played, but and just remembering how I would adopt certain strategies of my own, or your brain starts to think in that way, which is very cool. And I think I was one of those people who would almost play the game too balanced, to where I would sometimes go for a boss instead of going the easy route. I would sometimes choose a relic, and then other times choose health somewhere. Which is probably a strategy that I feel when I hear about other games, they're no, you want to really go hard with one thing or whatever.
I think you're just not a sicko and a freak. I think you're just at your core, it's on the sicko and a freak or normal guy binary. You're just not a sicko and a freak who's going to be I have to get every relic and I have to kill every elite boss. You're just okay, I'll go here now. I'll go to this.
Totally. Yeah. It's really all I was hoping to hear on this episode Okay, so you've done your job. Thank you, Max. Well, let's get into it for you then. How did you come to discover this game in the first place?
So my old roommate is this guy Stosh, who was and still is a game designer at Riot.
Oh, cool.
And a real genius, a phenomenal game designer. And another guy who was sort of more of a friend of a friend, but who I like hung out with maybe like 5-10 times, was this guy Brad, who was also a game designer at Riot. And like Slay the Spire is the first game I remember, because obviously as game designers they're like playing all the cool new games. That's the first one I remember them like just talking about in really reverent terms and like being like really like jealous of, and being like, oh, you have to check out Slay the Spire, and like that, like Sash would have like hundreds and hundreds of hours into it, and like beat it to the highest possible level, and like so to me it was like sort of like a what game designers thought was cool game, and I was a bit of a like sort of groupie to like them, you know what I mean? Like I just thought I sometimes wish that like, because I'm not a programmer and I've never like done programming, and I think to be a game designer you have to be a programmer basically, and so I sometimes like think about that as like an alternative career path. If I had like actually like learned to program, I think it would have been really fun to be a game designer. So I love to like just hover around, like I love to like just like like kind of like be in the background, like seeing what they were doing. There was a period of time where Stosh was like reworking the talent system in League of Legends, and I like we were just in my room, and I like pitched this thing, and it like made it into the game.
Whoa, cool.
And it became this like talent, and so like whenever people would run it for like years and years, it's not in the game anymore, but I'd be like, who came up with that? That was actually that was actually me.
Here's a bit of trivia about me. That is really cool, though.
And my friends would be like, this would be like the 9th time. They're like, yeah, Max, yeah, we get it.
You're like, you don't understand. I don't do this, and I'm really proud of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is really cool. So you were like hearing from this crew on what a great game this was. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think like, the way that review, like, puts it, like, there's no question of who the sun is, I think, like, that kind of, like, early reverence for it has really been borne out by, like, how influential it's been on, like, the subsequent genre. And I think, like, they're kind of, like, cheap games to make, right? At the end of the day, because, like, I think what's fun about them is not the graphics and, like, you can just do, like, 2D animation. There's no networking. It's just single player.
There's not. I mean, I never saw a cutscene, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
There's nothing like that.
You don't even really need good graphics at all to enjoy this game or like any of the similar games.
Yeah.
I will say, quick, like this is sort of a tangent, sort of not, but like something that my friend Miles, who was a game designer for a while, talked about was this idea of like design dark arts. And that's like when you kick somebody, like does it like feel satisfying? Like do you feel like it like lands with like a thump?
Sure.
Or like when you like level up, are there like cool sparkles that like all that kind of stuff that like makes you feel like Candy Crush has like really good design dark arts where like it feels really good to like lock in like 3 green pieces in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do think that like Slay the Spire has some like stuff like that where like it's just very satisfying to like play all these cards in a row, like cool sound effects and like it feels like you're like hitting them when you like drag it over them,
Yeah,
that part is like well designed.
Such a nice like little I guess flourish of like you use like a basic attack card and you hear the ironclad sword like crunch against an enemy, and if you kill it, it like dissipates or whatever.
Yeah,
it is really
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think it's fun too, like, because I think like trading card games for a long time were so much about like, okay, I'm gonna like buy this like 60 card deck and like spend so much time like putting together my perfect deck, and then this idea of like, I guess kind of inspired by like more like a draft format, but like hey, like you don't get to pick all your cards, you get like a couple like few more cards here and there as you go, and you have to like make decisions and like adapt based on like what you get, and like if you're like a skilled player, maybe you can like climb higher and higher and higher.
Sure.
But like at the end of the day, you're sort of like a slave to what you like happen to be lucky enough to run into.
Yes. So I guess I'd like to know from you, like when you finally did get this game, did you see the light immediately? Did it take you a bit to get into it?
No, I was pretty hooked right away, I think, because I love a real tragedy for me was like when I was younger and I like was just playing with my friends in South Carolina, and there were no like real like ranked lobbies to the same degree, or like I at least wasn't aware of any. And I was like just playing Super Smash Bros. Like with my friends or whatever. I was like, oh, I'm like really good at this. Like, maybe I'm like an incredible gamer. And like,
and I just haven't gotten off of Tatooine yet.
Dude, literally. And then like, you know, you get to like college and it's like, oh, like there's really a ceiling. Like, you know, like I can really devote myself to like all these different games, but like, you know, like chess or whatever, like I'm never going to get above like 1100 elo or whatever, you know, like it's like there's such a ceiling to my abilities with these things, and that's such a bummer because like I always feel like when I'm playing these games I'm like I'm a genius. Like am I gonna win an award for how cool my Slay the Spire build is, you know? But these games like Slay the Spire, you know, when you're putting together like this like cool little weird build, or like, you know, you have this sense of discovery, like that you don't know if like other people are playing it the way you are, you know, like maybe you're the first one to like try it this way. And Slay the Spire, I think, lets you make so many decisions that like, you know, like I'm sure by the time like you're like one floor in, like the number of different things you could have done is like more than like the number of atoms in the universe. You know what I mean? Like it's just so crazy, like how many decisions you can make like right away. So you feel like, hey, maybe I'm the first one who ever did this. Like maybe I'm like a tactician and a genius. And
so were you also like feeling this way about it when you were playing it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I've never, you know, I'm sure if there was a competitive mode in Slay the Spire, I would get trounced like I do in, you know, most competitive modes. But it gives you that feeling of like, you know, I've discovered this awesome, and like, you know, there's this like ascension system that, again, like this is something where I'm like, I'm not totally sure if if they were like the first ones, right? But like, you just like, you beat the game and they're like, cool, well now you're on like Ascension 1. Now it's like a little bit harder. Yeah. And then you beat Ascension 1, it's like now you're on like Ascension 2. And like, you know, you just keep going and you can like keep banging your head against the wall, you know, until you like can't progress anymore and you're like not smart enough to like keep going. And it's just very satisfying to like figure out where your like ceiling is as a like decision maker, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember, especially early on, and it's fine if your memory isn't that specific this far back, although, you know, not too far back in the grand scheme of things, how you were like going about playing it and some of those like choices that you made or discoveries that you made that were like really satisfying?
Yeah, let's see. First of all, I love to play these kind of games like on the edge of death. Like I love to just take like, you know what I mean? Like if there's an option that's like sacrifice 50 health and like gain a relic, I'm like click, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the problem is that works on like the easiest difficulty, right? And then like as it gets harder, you get punished for doing that, and then you just die. Yeah. You know, and it's like, hey, you probably should have like taken the like healing instead of the like, you know, 2 more attack or whatever. But that's something my favorite way to play those games is just like, you know, on the edge of death. What did you, when you were playing it, what did you like gravitate to? Or did you have like a guy that you liked?
You know, I think I ended up being as boring as you could be and stuck with Ironclad for so much of it.
Kind of me too. I played all of them. Yeah. But I probably played the most Ironclad. Yeah.
That was just like I was like, okay, this is a starting point I understand, and I've put enough time into it to where like I at least have some like strategies and things that I like to do. Like, for example, I would have been great if I would have played it before we did this podcast, or more recently, but I love getting like finding cards that allow you to attack but don't cost a turn, one of your like turns.
One of your energy points. Yeah,
I love, like, I remember as the Ironclad, loved loading up on like those block cards but getting abilities that if you used like a block, it returned a certain amount of damage at an enemy. Like, loved stuff like that. And just had an absolute blast. I felt like I was kind of hinting at earlier, I played it so down the middle for so much of it that it actually, when I, you know, in retrospect, I felt a lot more rewarded when I would, after doing that for a while, would stray off the beaten path.
You were telling me your favorite was Ironclad, but your second favorite aspect was the weenie office guy. and that you like really liked the
oh my gosh,
the
that
weenie
character.
office guy play style.
And that's just because it was really easy for me to just get in those shoes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was mostly the Ironclad for me. There was another character. I can look up these 4 characters' names.
It's like the Ironclad, the Silent, I think.
I think the Silent is the
Watcher
other one.
and the Defect.
Yes. Oh no. The Defect is the other one that I think I tried.
Super interesting little guy.
I just don't think that I like put enough time into it. Not that it's like rocket science, but to
it is a little bit. It is.
Yeah.
It kind of is rocket science.
Yeah. Okay. I feel better about that. Good. So for you, do you remember when you got this? Was this around 2019 when it came out? Was this like
I think I was playing it like in beta or something because I remember it just being this like whisper network of like, oh, this is so cool. And then like it was one of those things where like it was like when like, you know, I happened to hear "Take Me to Church" when it had like a 1,000 views or whatever.
Yes.
And then like it's very surreal to see it get like now it's like in grocery stores or whatever.
Yes. And then you hear that he's going to like see search history on Sunday nights at the UCB Theater in 2016.
Yes, exactly like that. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little more about your time with the game itself as well. What was like a part of the game, or like did you ever have a moment playing it that felt either like a big breakthrough for you or something that like totally surprised you about the game?
I remember like this one build where I think it's called like a shiv. Like the Silent can summon these like little daggers that do like 3 damage and then disappear from your hand, and they seem like sort of useless, and I like was never paying attention. I was like, why do you want these? And then one run I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll take all the shivs. And then I found like all this like these little cards and stuff, and then like suddenly you're playing like 50 daggers a turn, and it just is like it was so satisfying to like turn this weenie little card into like, okay, now like this is my whole strategy, and I'm like throwing a bunch of daggers at you.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think there are so many little aspects of this game that the game offers you a chance to lean into, and you could not, or you could do and see what's behind the curtain, kind of like you did.
Yeah, and like I think it's so cool when like in the way that like review I read said that like they just turn this into a genre where like now that you like when you play Slay the Spire, you can just change one little aspect and you have like a whole new game, right? Like this game Astria that I tried is like it's like instead of cards it's dice.
Oh.
So it's like a dice builder game where like so it's like basically like having cards, but like you could roll bad ones.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like, but that's why it's so cool is like it invented this genre where it's like you can do like, hey, Slay the Spire, but it's dice, and it's just like an entirely new game and like super fun, and they just like keep all the same elements. It's like you're still choosing your path, you're still like paying to destroy dice or duplicate dice, you're still like forging them, you're still like, you know, unlocking stuff as you go. There's still multiple characters, like you just steal all the Slay the Spire stuff and like make it your own, and you have like a whole fresh new game.
Yeah, that's interesting. Kind of, you know, calling back a little bit to your appreciation for, you know, like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft for what they did. That's amazing. Can I ask you a couple questions just about like your time playing this game as well? Because I just want to get a little, just dig for some specifics for you. Do you remember like the best run you've ever had?
Yeah, I think there was, let's see. I think I like conquered like the highest I ever got was like Ascension 8. I think that was like the highest I ever beat. And I was like trying to beat it for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and then I like did it with like an Ironclad run where it was like all about like the original card's called like Strike or whatever. That's like your basic attack card, and then you can like there's another card that's like does like 4 damage for each card with Strike in your deck.
Oh yes,
and you just go through and like take all the strikes, and then you like find a way to like you know draw like duplicate that card, so like now you'd have just a ton of like so that I ended up like being able to like get through the whole thing like with this like strike deck that was very satisfying.
Oh, that's cool. I love how some cards that you come across are like, you know, they're a card where you can duplicate another card for just that battle, or or they're cards that, I mean, this is very common in the game, a card that you use once and it vanishes but it comes back, or it's gone for your whole run.
Your whole run, yeah.
That was another.
Oh, there's one card where it does like 4 damage or something, but if you kill someone with it, its damage permanently increases by like 2.
Yes.
That is so fun. Like, and you're just like trying to line it up so you're always using that card to kill people. It's so great.
Oh man, just like you were kind of getting at, so many ways to make you feel smart in this game.
Yeah.
In a totally different way that like a Portal can make you feel smart.
Totally.
A Portal game. That's really cool. What I wanted to ask you is this a game you still play today?
You know, I booted it up in advance of this podcast. I hadn't played it in a while, and I literally was like, "Oh, it's 5:59. I have to go to the podcast."
That's so funny.
Like I was playing it for like I was like, "Oh, I like lost track of time, like picking it back up."
It can happen.
And even if I don't play exactly Slay the Spire that much anymore, it's like when this game that was like Slay the Spire but with dice came across my feed, I was like, "Yeah, I'll play that." Like, screw it. Like, sounds great, you know?
Totally.
And I feel like there's a whole list of games like Inkbound, Monster Train.
For the Monster Train, yeah.
Yeah, like even like Mortal Glory and like Dead Cells, Hades, like all these. I think all those games are like games I wouldn't have played if I hadn't played Slay the Spire, you know?
Wow.
So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I got into like this whole genre, I think, just purely off this game.
That's amazing. Great. What a jumping off point. I apologize because I can't remember if you have specifically said, so if you've kind of answered this before, feel free to just like remind me. Do you have, like, at least in your time when you were really playing this game, like a favorite like character to use and a strategy to play? I know you kind of were talking about a couple things with the Ironclad on that crazy run, but I wasn't sure if it was different.
I just was playing with the newest one today, which is called The Watcher. Like I think that was released later. That's the only one I haven't like played much of.
Yeah.
And that one is like based on like stances. So like you can be in one stance where you like take half damage and deal half damage, and one stance where you like deal double damage and like receive double damage.
Yes.
So you have to like really manage your stance. And like, you know, you can get caught in the like deal extra damage stance, and all of a sudden you're taking like 120 damage in your runs
You're
over,
just
you
cooked.
know? So it's just like really fun to like manage it back and forth. I think like what the game does so well is like, first of all, you're playing on like the easiest difficulty, and it just like lets you feel smart, and it like gives you a bunch of power, and like you just like like I think most people would only take them like a couple runs to like beat the easiest level, right? And then as you like keep going, it like really punishes you, because you'll be like, okay, I have this awesome like strategy where like my first turn I just play this one card, and then like once I hit turn 2 I'm like off and running, and it's like, okay, well, what if the enemy deals like 50 damage to you in your first turn, and you just wanted to play this card to set up turn 2, and now you're just like taking 50 damage at the start of every round, and you just like lose in 3 turns on the, you know? So I think it's really fun the way it like stretches you and like gives you a chance to, you know, I said this on a React videos too, but I'm a real like fiddly numbers freak. Like I love, like, you give me a chance to make a build, I'm all about it, you know?
Totally.
So, yeah.
That's cool. Well, I mean, you've given a little context of when you played this game, talking about sort of like the people who got you into it, but I would love to start with some scene painting here.
Yeah.
Like, can you scene paint the room you would have been playing this on?
For sure.
Were you playing on a PC?
PC.
Okay,
I was
cool.
playing in so this is when I lived in a guest house.
Oh.
Which was from when I was like probably like 23 to like 25.
Okay, gotcha.
And or maybe it was later, but and it was like 26, 27, but this was my most intense weed phase by far. We're just all in this like little 2-story guest house that's like behind a like rich woman's house, like in Santa Monica. So you just feel like you're kind of like tucked away, and like have that kind of like back of the bus, like up to no good, feeling all the time, like living in the guest house. I was living with my friends Casey and Stash. We were just like, it was like just edibles every day. Like I remember like driving to improv practice and being like, oh shit, like I forgot I like, you know,
did an edible
and I'd like, you know, drive home and be like, I can't come out tonight, guys. Like, so yeah, that was kind of the vibe of it. It was just my real like bohemian, you know, sort of like I had gotten fired from Riot, so I was just like, like a Lyft driver and like, figuring my stuff out and, just staying up till 3 a.m. and playing Slay the Spire in my room.
Was your computer set up in your room specifically too?
Yeah.
Did you share that with anybody? Was it your own room?
My own room. And
nice.
I would go down a lot and like, we would all just hang out together and like watch TV or play games or whatever. But yeah, Slay the Spire was specifically I'm just up in my room, I'm like playing this game.
Yeah, it's like I built a PC early this year. And so like that's what I'm recording with you on right now. And it does feel different to come and sit here and play a game as opposed to like literally anywhere else. I feel like when
Absolutely.
And I wonder if it's like because you're tucked up so close to the screen that you can kind of like immerse and isolate, but it is such like it doesn't have to be, but to me it can feel like such a solitary experience.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like 60% of just like putting on VR goggles or something.
Yeah, kinda.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And like, that's why like it's cool like when you're like on Discord with somebody or whatever, but like also if you're like super stoned and just getting lost in some like crazy endless map game, So yeah.
Was there as far as like the context of your life goes, like anything else, whether like any specific memories playing the game or not from that time in that context that you wanted to share today or no?
I was working at a fancy restaurant at that time, and I also got fired from that. This is really my institutional rejection era.
Yes.
I'm getting fired from Riot. I'm not making a UCB Herald team.
Yeah.
I'm like getting fired from my restaurant job. Like, just a real fuck up. I'm like calling my dad and being like, "Can I have like $500? Like I'm short on rent." You know what I mean?
Yes,
so,
totally.
That was really that phase of my life, I would say.
So was this game just like one of like several escapes, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, like, just like when you're unemployed, you have, or like kind of half employed, you have like so much time, and like, this game was like $15 or something. So like, it was just an easy, like, and you just play it for forever and you just like, pick it up. And I my games budget was, had to be pretty limited at that time, right? Because, I didn't want to call my dad and say I'm $550 short on rent. So.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I feel like I've gotten to hear just so much, great detail from you about the game and the context of your life that it was sort of like also swimming in. Before we move on, because I've got some segments to present to you at the end of the show. Would you do me a favor and just like wrap up the place that that Slay the Spire held for you?
Yeah, I think Slay the Spire for me is always going to be a just like one of the like pinnacles of like game design, something that like, I always feel like I'm kind of like the like little like, kid looking in the window and like on Christmas Eve at all the sweets, like trying to like, wanting to be a part of like, the world of like making your own game. And, like even when I brought up like the Baldur's Gate extension, right? Like this sort of like feeling of passion that like there should be these like specific Twitch game extensions, but like not being a programmer. And so my whole like role in it is to like,
like
Slack
conceptual
our marketing team and be like, hey, can we tweet about this? You know what I mean? So like just things like that. So it's just like this, I think, was like one of the things that, kicked off just a love of like these specific elements of game design and like the way to put together a game. And so I think you can like you could be inspired by Slay the Spire for across any art project.
Yes. That's great. Well, again, Max, thank you so much for bringing this game on to share, your time with me today. Before we go, I've got a couple of fun segments to do with you. The first of which is the Fact Me by Your Game segment, and that's just where I share fun facts with you about the game.
Let's go.
This first one, I got this fact from a YouTube user named Frost Prime, who has a great video. I think it's titled 7 things that you probably didn't know about Slay the Spire, and I didn't know any of them. But
we'll see about that, Frost.
Yeah,
maybe we'll see if I didn't know.
This one I found particularly interesting, and it was genuinely the only one from the video that I was like, oh, this would be fun to share in this context. So I have this titled Infinite Money. Yes, please. Now, it is theoretically possible to generate infinite money in Slay the Spire. Max, have you heard about this? Are you aware of this?
That doesn't shock me, but
yes.
I wouldn't be 100% sure about that. That's cool.
Yeah, you were talking about enjoying ways to sort of like break the game or like combinations to push things. It kind of reminds me of people like I'm thinking about. Are you familiar with Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy III?
A little bit. It
was one that was on the Super Nintendo, and there's ways to just like break the game with the systems that it like gives to you, and so. This is reminiscent of that, but you need two things to make this happen. You need a prismatic shard, which is a relic that allows for each of the next two cards that I'm about to say appear in the same run, because otherwise I guess just one of them will appear in each run, which are the card, I think it's called Charge Nightmare or just Nightmare, and the other card is called a Wish. You need... 2 copies of a Nightmare card and 1 Wish card. And what you do is when you're in a fight that doesn't scale to add a crate, what you want to do, and I hope this makes any sense.
I'm following completely.
Okay, great. You want to add like a crazy number of plated armor to your character, whether you're using a potion or you have relics that are helping you with that or cards, so that basically you can take hits and it's not going to kill you. Then you want to start making infinite nightmares by playing the card Nightmare that makes a duplicate of a card that you have, but it vanishes the one that you're using. So you need 2.
Oh, so you gotta. Okay, I got you. You gotta keep doing it on the Nightmare card. Okay,
exactly. And then I mean, you could at any point, as long as you have at least 2 of them still, and I think 3. Then you can start duplicating your Wish cards, which, essentially just give you money. So, like, that's how you do that. And this player, like...
That's fun.
I don't know if he accidentally figured out or tried this, but I thought that was just, like, a cool little hack for the game,
That's so smart. Yeah, that's a guy who's, like, actually smart.
Yes.
I bet that guy, like, actually beats, like, Ascension 19 or whatever.
Oh, this dude, I think it's like one of his, like, YouTube focuses, if not his focus, is Slay the Spire. So, again... Shout out to Frost Prime.
Shout out.
Had a cute dog in the background of that video if you like dogs out there. That's it for the first fact. The second fact, I just have some inspiration that I guess this game was drawn from. So aside from drawing inspiration from the deck building game Dominion, Slay the Spire was also inspired partially by the Netrunner collectible card game. Of which one of the creators, his last name is Giovanetti, was a fan. And I guess Giovanetti also maintains like a community website for this collectible card game.
Wow. That's awesome.
So just like a couple little inspiration drips and drabs there. That'll do it for that was just from the Wikipedia page, by the way.
No, that's great.
Yeah. So that's it for the Fact You Buy Your Game segment. I'll get us into the final one.
Those are really good facts, Connor. I was wondering, and those were great.
Thank you. Some games are really hard. This was actually a challenging one to find just like fun facts for. Do you know the YouTube channel Did You Know Gaming?
Okay. I haven't seen it now.
Okay. Well, first of all, check them out. They're like if I'm ever looking for fun facts for an episode, the first thing I do is go to YouTube and search like game title, Did You Know? And it's just, and I shot them out there, an amazing channel. But anyway, the game recommendations. Now, Max, you've probably heard on previous episodes, this is my forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat Slay the Spire like your passionate summer love that you had in Italy. But, unfortunately, it's not going to work out long term. So in order to get you over the heartbreak of losing this lover, and I will characterize this game as your lover, I'm going to give you a few options to move on. Some flings, if you will.
Perfect.
For you to potentially date.
I'm trying to picture dating Slay the Spire, and like I'm like picturing like a like just the most like sort of like bright and like severe like bespectacled like like woman who's way smarter than you and like very difficult to impress and like
you're like, why is she with
like
me?
Little breadcrumbs. Yeah, exactly.
And then when you get dumped, you're like, hey, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, it had to happen eventually.
So these potential flings all have something in common with the game because I find a little familiarity goes a long way. So
cool.
Here we go. I've got 3 for you today. The first of which is what you loved about Slay the Spire is that you loved the deck building aspect of the game. That's really all you want. You want another critically acclaimed deck building game, but one that apparently has like a crazy twist that I still don't even know about because I haven't looked it up. And that game is Inscription. Have you heard about this?
I've read about this. I should play Inscription at some point. Everyone loves it. Yeah.
Do you know the twist?
No, but I think it's like at some point it's like not a deck building game anymore.
I assume they pulled the rug out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like some really weird thing where like it's just a completely different game.
Yeah. So me choosing, this game because it's a deck builder could be totally false at some point.
No, that's a great one. And I have not played it and I should play it.
Okay, cool. So that's your first one.
Great.
The second one.
That would be like a dark, brooding, like,
yes.
Like goth woman who turns out is like secretly like a spy or something.
Yes. And now that's exciting.
That is exciting.
The next one I have for you is if, you want another deck builder, but Slay the Spire and it's sort of like infinite paths and possibilities is too much. You'd like something that's more linear. I'll recommend the Pokemon trading card game, which is a Game Boy Color title. Have you heard of this?
Oh, I was obsessed with this game.
No way, you were?
I love Pokemon the trading card game, the video game.
It's on Switch Online now. Did you know that?
I can't believe that. No.
Yeah.
I can't believe they never made another one.
I think they came out with, I want to say like there was a Gen 2 game in Japan only for the Game Boy Color, but I might be thinking of like Pinball was on the Game Boy Color. Anyway, I think there was one that never came to the US basically.
Really quick aside.
Yeah.
Have you played any of the like fan-made Pokemon games? Or have you ever messed around with like a randomizer or anything like that?
No, but I bet I would love them.
It's pretty fun.
Good
it's
stuff.
It's really cool. It's like it's similar to it's so cool because like Pokemon is such a like it's just such a it's so easy. It's like making a new Pokemon game. Like the rules are so clear, and people just do like an unbelievable job with it. And then like if you've never played a randomizer run, that's also so fun.
Yeah,
like where like because all the like moves are different. Like that's really great.
I want to do that like randomizer specifically. I'm a big Zelda fan. I'd love to do that for like the Zelda games that I know like the back of my hand. It would be perfect for that.
That'd be cool. Yeah. The ones where people like randomize the bosses and stuff, like
or like where like items are.
Yeah, that's cool.
So anyway, the second one for you, Pokemon trading card game. And lastly, is if instead of forging a path, climbing this seemingly endless path to slay something, you are feeling like you'd rather stay back and defend something, I'll recommend the tower defense game, Plants vs. Zombies.
Ooh, another one I've never played but should try. Tower defense, by the way, also originally a Warcraft 3 custom map mode.
Amazing. Incredible. Just unreal what like that
Actually,
spawned.
there was a game, there was a Warcraft 3 custom map mode called Winter Mall, which was like a tower defense game.
Yeah.
Super fun. And then there was one called Winter Mall Wars, where you and 2 people would like build a tower defense maze and then try to attack your opponent's tower defense maze. And I'm stunned that there's never someone should make the like League of Legends of that, because that was a super, super fun like kind of game.
That's amazing. I love how that has come back for us. Like we've made it comedy. We've talked about it 3 times. The rule of threes has happened about that today.
You're so right.
It's meant to be. Well, that was your final one. I'll wrap up the recommendations again. We've got Inscription, Pokemon trading card game, and Plants vs. Zombies. Max, that'll bring us to the end of the segment, and in fact, as well, the end of the show. So before we go and plug whatever we want again, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. This was such a fun chance, not just to hear from you about this game, but to get a chance to like talk to you about something that like we've talked about games a little bit, but not extensively. So this was so much fun for me. Thank you.
This was a blast. I'm so glad you had me on. I had a wonderful time.
And you said, I believe you have no plugs, right?
I think I pretty much have no plugs.
Okay, cool.
write your congressman next time your favorite game comes out and be like, shouldn't this have its own bespoke Twitch extension?
Yeah, and this is the place for this, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, amazing. I've got some plugs of my own, so I'll go ahead and close us out with those. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. You can find him and his other great work on Instagram at Glenn with 2 N's.jay. This show is produced by the great Jeremy Schmidt. You can give him a little thank you for all the work he does on this podcast by listening to his show, Video Games, a comedy show wherever you get your podcasts. Very different format than this one. You can follow me on social media at Connor_McCabe on Twitter and Instagram, and on Blue Sky at Connor McCabe. Again, if you are listening on an audio feed, but you want to watch the video version of this podcast, check us out on YouTube. There's a link in the show notes to our channel as well, where you can check out this episode. If you're watching on YouTube and you want the audio version, find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to the podcast as well there. And then lastly, of course, we've got our Patreon. I've promoted it a few times on the podcast, but it's where we have a bunch of great bonus video game content for you, the listener. And one bonus thing that I do every month is I do a group episode of the show, the co-op series, where I have more than one person on. And instead of this very intimate interview that we do here on the main show, we talk about a game that we've either all played or that we all remember from our childhood. It's usually whatever I have played for that month. Like right now, coming up for the month of November, that we'll be doing an episode on Psychonauts, the 2005 platformer.
I loved Psychonauts.
This is I've been saying I'm in my Tim Schafer era this year.
Cool.
Become a huge fan. I knew who he was, but this year I become a huge Schafer fan, and I played Grim Fandango, which we did an episode on, and now I'm playing Psychonauts. It's great, and I'm glad to hear you played it too.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? Sorry.
He's like the Tim Burton of he's his own crazy cool artist. Yeah, for sure. He's awesome.
I really love him. A recommendation for you at the end of the show as well is if you like documentaries, check out Psych Odyssey on YouTube.
Ooh.
It's a documentary about the making of Psychonauts 2 from Double Fine's in-studio documentary crew. It's amazing, and since you've been interested in game design, it's only gonna tickle that itch.
I will check that out. Yeah, absolutely.
Scratch that itch, I think is what I should have said.
Tickle that itch.
Tickle that itch. Yeah. I don't know if that's what you want, but
please don't. That would make the itch way worse.
Yeah, do not do that. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.